All right, Chapter 6 is all about encryption and password cracking. We have an entire class on this topic, by the way. It's called Computer Security, which it got approved today to rename it to Encryption and Trusted Systems. So we're renaming a few courses. And we're also changing the degree plan, which got approved at the division level. It goes before college level next week, and if it's approved, I'll let you know what the changes will be for next year, in the fall. Then you can switch to the new program or keep the old program whenever you feel like it. It's up to you. Your grandfathered into the old program, so okay. But you are changing. Since I cover encryption in that class, you might as well call it. All right. So let's talk about encryption and password cracking. Strong passwords. Does anyone have a password that's so hard to get or so hard to remember you have to write it down? I have quite a few that way. So what do? You write them down?
I use LastPass.
I use LastPass, which is really good. And it's funny, if you have never used LastPass, I highly recommend it. It's great because you can, like my OSU password is 30 characters long. Numbers, letters, special characters, and everything. It's all random. And it's all stored, it's encrypted AES, and I never have to know it, which is very, very nice. And I can change it with a click of a button. But I did find a flaw in their system. And not really a flaw, but it's basically when using Chrome with LastPass and certain Facebook profiles in LastPass, it causes it to auto-refresh with a blank message that says, "What's on your mind?" I've been having this problem for a while, and I've been working with them. We think we figured out what the problem was today. So I've been working with, they're quick. I mean, you submit a support request, 20 minutes later you get an answer. So they're working with me to solve the issue. They gave me a developer version they're working on, and but it's kind of nice that they actually do that with you. But I mean, passwords, necessary evil, we need them. But it's at the point now where you have to have some sort of password management tool. It's impossible. Like the NSS or the NSA, one of them was 12 to 14 characters, 2 uppercase, 2 lowercase, 2 numbers, 2 special characters. How? You can't remember that. And I think it's 90-day expiration. It's like, no, you can't. Okay. Okay, guessing, stealing, or cracking passwords. And that's, we're going to be actually doing it in forensics right now. Some of you are using John the Ripper, and we'll be doing more of that. But we'll be doing some in this class, just not this week. It's basically cracking is breaking passwords. So why would we teach someone how to break passwords?
To better defend against it.
Exactly, to better defend. See how it's being done so you know, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a bad password. Was the president of Syria, his password was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh, that's crazy. All right. Cryptography, it says the algorithm encrypts a ciphertext document from a plaintext document. Basically encrypts something. And then it can also decrypt it back into plaintext. Okay? Excuse me. VPNs do that for us. There's a lot of software that does that for us. SSL, I mean, we all use secure web browsers, I'm assuming. At least for your banking and stuff like that, it was all encrypted. Y'all see the iPhone SSL issue last week? There's a problem with it. I don't know exactly what the problem was, but they came out with a real quick fix and kind of shoved it on a lot of our phones. It's not, I guess you still have to click install, but automatically downloads and everything. But yeah, there's issues with it. But okay. No, they have not fixed the desktops yet. So, I don't know exactly what the problem was, but it was an SSL issue. I know that. But yeah, they fixed the mobile device. It's funny that they fixed the mobile quicker than the desktop. I guess they do have a bigger mobile base than they do desktop base. But. All right, so transposition says changing the order or position of letters or words. That's that old weekly jumble, Sunday jumble in your paper. Okay, it doesn't rely on the length of the passwords. Could be based on probability. So there's lots of different ways you can do this stuff. Okay, says anyone can break a transposition cipher based on the frequency of letters. We learned about that in another class called index of coincidence and stuff like that. Some of you should at least remember the word. Okay. All right. A substitution, replace one letter for another. Those of you in forensics are doing that this week, having to figure out what I replace letters with. There's a lot of common letters. But what if someone was to use substitution but not use common letters? Like replace an A with an L. You'll come up with your own substitution scheme. Way back when I was in the military, we had a guy who wrote his password on a sticky note on his monitor. and right on his monitor. But we can never get into his machine. What he did is he remapped his keyboard to Dvorak, which is actually alphabetic. And that's where his password was. So unless you knew that, you really didn't know his password. We could never get in his machine yet. That's what it was, because he changed his keyboard mapping basically. He was a weird guy. It was kind of funny because this is back in the mid 90s, maybe late 90s, and we were playing around with, just messing with people. And I could type very fast back then, about 120 words a minute. And they came in one day and took all my keys off my keyboard and put them all in a new order. I don't ever look at the keys. I come in and I'm there just doing my work, and they're all peeking around the corner at me, and I was a section chief at the time, and they're all looking at me, and I finally said, what the heck's going on? I didn't realize they actually changed all my keys. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. Sorry, because I don't ever look at them. Does anyone actually look at the keys? Now, y'all remember Roy? He was like, actually, Roy wasn't, Caleb was the worst. Roy is this. At least he had 2 fingers, but it was like, 4 fingers. Great, okay. But there's a lot of different ones. Now, the Enigma machine, U571, everyone seen that movie? Very good. If you haven't seen it, it's called U571. Really good movie. I was somewhere up in Maryland. I actually got to see one. It just looks like a big typewriter, but it looks like an old-time typewriter. Okay, it says the most famous substitution cryptography machine. And I guess if the movie was right, that's how we got the answer, by stealing one from them. Okay, the Turing says machine to crack the Enigma code, developed by Alan Turing. And there's a whole bunch more you can learn if you look up his name. We're not going into depth on that. Okay. All right, there's another one, the Colossus, a programmable computer made by Max Newman. In common terms, when dealing with this stuff, again, we go into this in great gory depth in another class. Clear text, that's something we can read. Ciphertext is something that's been encrypted. A key, someone actually emailed me today asking about a key length. Was that someone in this class? When we get to that slide, I'll make sure I talk about key length. But the key, that's kind of like the key to open the lock. What are you encrypting with? The algorithm is, are you using AES, are you using DES, are you using whatever? Okay. Then a hash. A hash, when I logged into Windows a minute ago, how did it work? How did it verify my password? Does anybody know how that system works? Well, what it did is, I typed in my password, it encrypted it with the hashing function, sent the password hash across the network, and compared it with the hash stored at row state system. So did my password ever go across the network? No, it did not. The hash did.
So where was it stored on the network?
It's stored in an active directory. Now, some systems, like way back when I ran an ISP, we used a system called VPASP. It was a shopping cart system. This is about the year 2000, 2001. It was one of the first shopping cart systems that worked with ASP. And the early versions of it had to have your password stored in reversible encryption, which kind of sucked because it had to have the ability to undo it. Normally you don't want that. You do not want a hashing function that can be reversed. MD5 cannot be reversed, SHA-1, 2 cannot be reversed, stuff like that. So think of a hash like your windshield. If I was to take your windshield and smash it into a million pieces, could you ever put it back together? No, you shouldn't be able to. MD5 is where we take documents, we take words, and encrypt them into a hash, and that one specific document should be the only thing that would create that specific hash. So we'll talk more about that as we go as well. 2 different types, symmetric and asymmetric. Okay, easy way to remember: symmetric, same key, SS. So symmetric encryption, same key. Asymmetric, different key. Which one's faster, you think?
Same key.
Same key. Symmetric is much, much faster. Okay. If you looked at the slide, I actually edited the slide from last year. But so symmetric is also called secret key. So if we're using the same key to encrypt and decrypt, what happens if Andy's key gets compromised?
Whoever's got the key has access to it.
I mean, he has access to everything because it's the same key for both of us. So it does have issues. We have a lot of key management issues. Plus, getting the key is another issue. How do I get him the key? That's another issue. Okay, so same key to encrypt and decrypt. They must, sender and recipient must have the same key. Inherent vulnerability in keeping it secret and transmitting it between the two. Okay. it is faster. Much, much faster. Here's some speeds. DES, triple DES, IDEA, triple IDEA, skipjack, and clipper chip. Now, if you look at the speeds, all using a Pentium PC, DES is pretty darn quick. Okay? Very, very fast. Now, looking on the right-hand column, you see something called key length. I think this was someone emailed about the question about key length. The longer the key length, the better the encryption. Think of it like a password. If you use a 2-digit password, the odds are I can break it pretty quickly. If I use a 56-digit password, it's better. But if I use a 128-digit password, it's even better. So, excuse me, the longer the key, the better the encryption. Okay? Now, I was actually listening to last year's recording, and I had talked about, I set up a VPN, virtual private network, for Chapel Supply. They sell cleaning, pressure washer type equipment. They have an office here in Oklahoma City, and they have an office in Fort Worth. Okay? And I had the choice between triple DES or AES. Which would you pick? You know, from everything I learned, AES actually gives better performance. But I couldn't find the actual numbers on. So what I ended up doing was I turned on the VPN using one, copied a bunch of data over, then turned on using the other, copied a bunch of data over, and then compared the time. So they're both good. And now, what if you had a choice of using DES? Would you use it? Now, DES has been broken. Everybody knows that. DES has been broken. But there's that whole thing called timeliness. If I'm encrypting something for 30 minutes, it only has a value of 30 minutes. Is DES a good choice?
Yeah.
Sure. Unless you got, you know, a Cray computer in your pocket or something, or you're probably not going to break it in 30 minutes. So that whole timeliness and also speed. I mean, look at that speed. It's pretty good. And most things nowadays, like even your little Linksys router at home, you get the option like TKIP using AES and stuff like that. AES is the better one at the moment. I say at the moment because when they came out with Caesar Cipher, that was the best thing on the market. So is AES going to be around forever? I don't know. It's here at the moment. So, all right. Stream services use a key stream to encrypt and decrypt a plain text message. There's stream, there's also block. Yeah, block's on the next one. Stream we actually encrypt as we're going. So if I was a very slow typist, would a stream cipher be good? Yeah, because I'm encrypting as I'm going, one at a time. Okay, so use a key stream to encrypt and decrypt plain text message. It's also similar to a one-time pad, which is also random numbers. Okay. A one-time pad obviously gets used how many times? One time, very good. It's a bunch of random numbers. It says numbers of the one-time pad are added to the letters in the plain text to encrypt, and they're basically XORed with the plain text message. So you have your plain text, you XOR them with the one-time pad, and you go from there. Okay. Now block ciphers, now you got to work with a block of data. So again, if I'm a very slow typist, you're going to have to wait until I get a block finished and then send it. So block are normally better. Okay, like DES is 64-bit blocks. Okay, AES actually has variable block length. Most of the better ones nowadays have variable block lengths. Okay, so the algorithms break the plain text into blocks, however long they're set to. Then each block is worked on independently, which is kind of nice. It says plain text will always be padded. What they mean by that is if I'm sending you something that's 62 bits long, it's going to put it in 64 bits to fill up the block pretty much. Okay. And it says they allow you to reuse keys, like DES is a block cipher. Okay. All right. Asymmetric is also called public key. One of the most popular ones there is probably PGP, made by Phil Zimmerman. Okay. Very, very handy one. It says 2 keys for encrypting and decrypting. Each user has a public and a private. The public I give out to the entire world. So I post my public key up on keyserver.pgp.com. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Let me bring up this here internet.
I hope it works this time.
Yeah, come on. There, think about it. Thinking. Come on. All right. Oh, it's working so far. I'm up at keyserver.pgp.com. tell me my key's expired. Seriously? Well, maybe my key expired. Great. Okay. But you can search for someone's key, and then it'll be up there. Okay? I swear I just renewed my key just recently. Then what you can do is download those keys. Those are public keys. Anybody in the world can get them. So I could download this GDewey key right here. And let's show in folder. I'm going to open this key up with TextPad so you can see what it looks like. This is the guy's key. This is his public key. There's one answer to this key, and he contains it, or he keeps it. So what is the benefit of using this? Well, so if what was this guy's name again? Gary Dewey? Gary Dewey. He's got a good last name at least. So if I was to take something and encrypt it with Gary Dewey's public key and send it to him, actually send it to all of you, who could open it? Just Gary. He's the only one that has the private key. Okay. Now what if Gary was to take something and encrypt it with his private key and send it out to all of us? Who could open it? We all could. Then why would there be a benefit to that?
We know it's from Gary.
We know it came from Gary. And Security Commerce, most of those of you taking the class will probably do a project in it. I have the students make their own key and also get my key. I have them upload a document to me without signing it in any way, shape, or form. I give them the exact file name. I don't care what's in it. Just give them the exact file name, and they send it to me. And they should encrypt it with my public key and their private key, which means I can open it because I have the answer to the private key, and I get their public key so I can see it came from them. It's called encrypting and signing. So basically, I know it came from them, and they know I can open it. And if they do it correctly, it'll pop up and say, hey, Jim Finch sent this file to you. Or basically encrypted it. So, very, very nice. I just got to find out where my key is. Handy. Okay. So it says 2 keys for encrypting. Each one there's a public and a private. The public key encrypts the data. Private key opens it. Now, does it matter which key is public, which key is private?
I guess as long as you don't get mixed up.
It doesn't matter, as long as you don't mix them up. Once you decide that this key is the public key, you can't change your mind next week. So now this one's the public key. You can't do that. And like PGP, if you way back when I first started playing with this, I had both of my keys saved in the same file. I tried to upload it to PGP and it wouldn't take it. Because it was basically saying, whoa, you can't put both your keys online, it's stupid. Pretty much makes sense, it is stupid. So, alright. Okay, here we go. Some asymmetric algorithms, RSA, Diffie-Hellman, DSA. There's lots of them, and there's actually a book out there called Crypto by Stephen Levy, CRYPTO. It's really, really good. It talks about all these different encryption algorithms in story format. And yeah, if you get a chance, just read it. It tells you where they got these ideas from this, and some are just hilarious the way they come up with stuff. So, kind of funny. Okay, digital signal algorithm. Do anyone use digital signatures nowadays? We all do, in one fashion or another. Now, the military uses them more. Now, what would happen if Andrew here sends me a message from Tinker encrypting it with his digital signature? Could I open it? But do you know what happens if I go to open it? I get an error. Basically, what happens is you guys use PKI. It's internal to the military, isn't it? So throughout the military, they can verify it's from him. But when I try to open up his message, I can open it, but I can't verify the key because the key is internal to the military. So basically, it comes up and says there's a problem with this message, with this key. Okay. So, but it's a way of signing stuff. Okay. Now, there's some things in the world that supposedly will never be signed digitally. Anyone ever heard of stuff like that? Say mortgage documents is one of them. That's what I've been told, because they want to be able to, it's something that could get passed down from generation to generation. They want to verify who it came from. So, yeah. I just refinanced my house again, so I knew that. So that's one thing they say will never be signed. But there's a few other things, but most other things, I mean, heck, does anyone actually have to go to the bank anymore? I mean, we all can deposit our checks on our phones now, I'm assuming.
I don't smell money, how that can go.
But I actually had to go to the bank Friday or Monday, whatever day it was. Because when I closed on my house, there was a little bit left over money. They sent me a check. But on the very bottom of the check, it has the account numbers. Then directly below it, it said, you know, this check has a color background with white text on blah, blah, and words. And the mobile app couldn't distinguish the numbers from the words. It kept saying, could not read numbers on bottom of check. Because it was a big check. So I had to like zoom way out, you know, be way out. I'm like, darn it. So I actually had to go to the bank and deposit it. I mean, it's cool they do so. Every time I do it, though, just think about it. Every time you deposit a check, one more person just lost their job.
I thought the rates were up, Ken. Why don't you just refinance?
I just refinanced because they called me and said, hey,
But aren't the rates up?
no, not right now.
Okay.
I got 3.25%.
No kidding.
From the day they called me till I closed was 7 days. No fees, no finance charges, no closing costs, no nothing whatsoever.
Wow.
And they said, and we're gonna see. I had a 15-year loan, $1,400 a month, and I was paying $2,000 a month. I always pay extra. And they're like, we're gonna lower your loan to 8 years, make your payment $1,800, which is less than what I was paying anyway. But closing it and finishing 8 years, and it's like, okay, because they didn't want me to go somewhere else, I guess. So they literally, from the day they called me to the day the guy was at my
They
house,
didn't know what they were doing.
signed the papers, was 7 days.
They didn't look at your finance report, did they?
They didn't know that I don't pay my dental bills on time. No, it drives me crazy with my dentist. You ever get that bill that's for like $5 or $2? I'm like, seriously? Even when I go to get my teeth some work, I'm like, charge me $10 extra. Just so you don't send me a bill for $2. And they'll never will do it. So I was called like, don't worry about it, just leave it there. Next time you come in, when then we'll pay. I'm like, that's why I didn't pay my bills on time. So. All right. There's also digital timestamps. This connects documents with a specific time or origination. Time is a big deal nowadays. I was doing something. I had an old iPod Touch, and I was trying to configure it, and I did not know, but when the batteries totally die, the clock resets to whatever year Steve Jobs was born, I think, or I don't know what it resets to. It resets to something. But I couldn't get it to take my Apple ID for nothing. And I knew what it was. I entered on my phone, and I went online, and what they said? Correct your date. What? It says, yeah, check your date and time settings. I'll be damned. That wasn't what it was. It was set to 1970 or something. It was set to not auto-update the date. What it was is I used those for projects, and I would turn off, like those of you in, well, okay, I'm not going to tell you that. There's something coming up that'll mean something to you in forensics. A lot of times I will turn off the auto date freshly for projects so I can manipulate the system. And that's what it was. It was because the time didn't match. Okay, my travel agent, you ever seen those users that can use their computer but barely? Well, she had this knack of clicking on stuff and not knowing she did it. Well, she had an issue every time she would try to surf the website. She kept getting a certificate error over and over and over. Every website. Well, what she had done was she had clicked down on the clock and somehow clicked on the year and somehow drug it to like 1970. So yeah, all the certificates were invalid because she was trying to access them from 1970. And it was like, but it's hard to figure that stuff out because it keeps saying certificate error. That's all it says. It doesn't say your clock is off. It doesn't say this. But and it happened multiple times actually, and the girl who works from their office now knows. Certificate error, fix her clock. You know, it's one of those things that she has issues. But yeah, digital stamps, okay, pretty important as well. Okay, cryptanalysis decodes messages to make them readable. So we want to take something that's encrypted and reverse it so we can read it. Okay. It says the first and most important step is detecting the key values, and there's a couple of different ways. We learned about that in the other class as well. The Kaczynski method and stuff like that. You know, finding probably key length and stuff like that. We cover that stuff. But there's, I mean, nowadays with computers, dump stuff in Google and most things get solved instantly anyway. Well, it depends on how they're encrypted. Okay. All right, some property one says average user tends to confuse the categories within the cryptographic taxonomy. Okay, so DES is old. Okay, symmetric encryption. It's a block cipher. I cover it in multiple weeks in class. Developed in the early 70s. Okay? Does anyone know what cipher it was based on? It's actually the Lucifer cipher.
Oh, I can picture the picture.
It's because the name was DEMON. Does anyone know why it was called DEMON? Because it's going to be demonstration. It was too long, so they shortened it to demon. So people said, oh, that's Lucifer. And then it was, it's kind of weird. But usually a 56-bit key to encrypt. Now there's some rumors out there that it was going to be stronger, but the NSA wanted it lowered. We'll have to ask Jim about if that's true or not. But I mean, read the crypto book. It'll tell you all about it. It's really kind of interesting how they finally came up with what they came up with. Okay, this breaks the plain text into 64-bit blocks. Actually, then separates into 32-bit halves. Goes through 16 rounds of transposition, substitution. Does all this cool stuff. It really works on one half at a time and mixes it all up. But the same algorithms are used for encryption and decryption. So it's still good. If you were to encrypt some, say I took the test answers and encrypted with DES and sent it to you, you would not be able to open them. It's still good. Okay. All right. Security says depends upon the chosen key. There are some bad keys out there. Known as weak keys. Okay. It is susceptible to brute force attacks, like pretty much everything is, in my opinion. Triple DES, it says encrypts the text 3 times using different keys. It can actually be done different ways. You can use 3 different keys. You can actually encrypt with one key, decrypt with a different key, encrypt again with a third key. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. It says triple DES is almost 3 times slower than DES. Makes sense. It's doing it 3 times. 3 times slower. Okay. Security of triple DES is equivalent to a single DES but using 112-bit key. And since we know that the longer the key, the better it works, so obviously the triple DES is better. Okay. AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, the Richendale algorithm. Okay. It was actually made through a competition. It's based on sound math and all that good stuff. Sugar and egg, I think. I'm not sure. No, but superseded DES in 2001. Uses variable block size, variable rounds, variable key length, variable pretty much everything. Okay, we learned that in another class as well. And it's a lot better. So input bit sequence is copying to arrays, and then there's all kinds of stuff done to them. Again, we cover that in another class. Okay. AES is faster than DES but slower than Blowfish. Does anyone watch Jack Bauer? Remember 24? Remember 24?
Comes back out in May.
It's coming? Really?
Yeah.
Seriously? He's alive still? Nice.
It's called the next 24 hours.
The next one. Did anyone ever see Conan O'Brien 60?
Yes.
It was 60 seconds. 1 second per episode. It's like, and the next episode, it was like, that was pretty funny. But he had an episode on there where he's trying to break into this lock. It's encrypted with a blowfish. And the guy's like, oh, I happen to know the back door to that one. He gives it to him and he gets right in. It's like, funny stuff. Okay. Says AES is all successful attacks upon AES have been through side channel attacks. Now, what does that mean? Could be through the hardware. Could be through some other issue. And they're also saying that text encrypted with AES would take like 149 trillion years to break compared to DES or something like that. And yeah, something that can break DES in 1 second would take 149 trillion years to break AES. Now, what I wanted to know is, how did they prove that? So they started testing this 149 trillion years ago, and it's still going. It's supposed to finish next Monday. I don't know, but it's actually, speaking of that, have you ever seen how they test like hardware and keyboards and stuff? They actually have machines that go tkush, 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 tkush. It's like, seriously? It really does. I saw one of those geographic channels, science channels about that. And same with lights. They put stuff in this crazy bright light on and off, and it simulates 18 years in the sun or something. It's like, it's crazy. But so I don't know how they exactly simulated 149 trillion years. I haven't been around that long, but okay. So the side channel attacks are based on factors other than the strength of the algorithm. Could have been a key compromise, could have been hardware failure, could have been whatever. All right, idea. It says the International Data Encryption Algorithm, developed in Switzerland, 128-bit key, 64-bit blocks, a longer key, but the same basic block length of DES. Okay. Says somewhat faster than triple DES, but slower. Wait. Faster than triple DES, but wait a minute. Faster than triple DES. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I was reading on, but slower than plain DES. Okay, it's resistance to differential cryptanalysis, and there are some weak keys. What they're talking about with weak keys, DES has some weak keys as well. Like if you had keys that was all zeros, probably not a good choice for a key. Or a key that's all ones. Or a key that's 101010. I mean, there's certain keys that are, it's kind of like your password being 12345. I don't care how good your system is, if your password is 12345, you're probably going to get broken into. Okay? So there's weak keys. Okay? Skipjack, the NSA developed it, used it in the Clipper chip, which does anyone actually use it anymore? I don't think anyone uses it anymore. Do they, Jim? You don't know if anyone uses Clipper chip, do they? It was actually used in cell phones there for a while. But okay, so it's an 80-bit key, operates on 64-bit blocks, and has issues as well. Actually, most of them have issues, but then we get into something like RC4, very fast, used when moderate security is needed. So, quantum cryptography. Does anyone know the name of the first thing that transmitted it? Transmitted it by 1 foot. It was Aunt Martha's coffin. They actually made this box where they were able to transmit it via light using photons for 1 foot. I'm not a scientist. I don't know if any of you were a scientist in there. But the whole theory of photons are once you look at them, they've been modified. So it's basically sending data using photons. And it's going faster and faster and faster. Okay? This is really a key exchange protocol. It's not only for transmitting data, for transmitting the key. Okay? Yeah. Actually, they've gotten it to go very far. So, all right. Blowfish, Bruce Schneider. Okay, then we have the Enigma machine and the Veneer cipher. Yeah, some of these we cover the Veneer in the other class. Okay, it says a historical and easy to solve substitution program. Yet it was good for about 300 years. So, kind of cool. But again, it's like the Caesar cipher. That was, I don't know how long that one lasted. Probably for a while. Okay. RSA, Ravesh Shamir Alderman. It's still being used today. No known weaknesses. Okay. Now, there are side channel attacks on that one as well. If you got hardware issues, that can be an issue there. 1977. Okay. So some programs that factor in large numbers. And again, we talked about another class, but it's very, very large numbers. It's actually what's used a lot in our SSL encryption today. Diffie-Hellman, another key exchange protocol. We cover that. It's actually a very simple one to do. It says allow two parties who have no prior knowledge create a shared key, which is kind of nice. Me and Roger, without knowing anything ahead of time, could jointly create a key that we could use, yet neither one of us knows how the other one did it. So it's actually a very slick protocol that we covered in another class. Okay. Digital signature standards is based on the digital signature algorithm. User-generated digital signatures. Imagine how that works. And, you know, majority of the users out there don't even have a clue what a digital signature is, but they're used in SSL certificates. They're used in all kinds of things. They are out there. So, okay. Elliptic curve. I'm actually wanting to cover that one of these years. I just haven't got the slides all together, what I want to come up with. It's based on math, obviously, but it's based on, what does it say there? Are harder to solve than factoring the products of large numbers because it's based on the properties of an elliptic curve. And there's a video there, which we're not going to watch, but there's lots of different algorithms out there. Okay. All right, Java. There's actually NTRU for Java, uses a matrix of numbers. There's just all kinds of different ways to encrypt. They wouldn't know what the most popular encryption pack is for Java. Bouncy Castle, ever heard of that one? It's called Bouncy Castle. Very, very nice. You can actually use it and do anything. You can implement RSA, AES, DES, and all that using it. It's called Bouncy Castle. It's kind of nice. Lattice based on NP complete problems. I'm going to cover that in the other class, but it's a problem where you can solve it, prove that it can be solved, okay? And there's a little more involved in that, but that's close enough. Okay. And it says they're not proven to be effective, but they are there. There's a lot of stuff that's not been proven to work yet. But. All right. Hash functions is I can add 3 numbers in the result of 294. Y'all agree with that? Could I come up with 3 numbers to come up with 294? Y'all agree? I could? Okay. What are the original 3 numbers? Does anyone know what 3 numbers are? Could you guess? I mean, could you figure it out?
Yeah.
You could guess. But
You need 3 numbers.
there's a lot of numbers that could be combined to come up with 294. Obviously, the numbers I picked were 97, 98, and 99. Okay? But it would have been very hard, or could they have been 96, 99, 99, or 2 and 2 and 9. So my point is, a hashing algorithm, you can't reverse it. If I just told you 294, the odds of you picking the correct 3 numbers are 0. It's like your car windshield. Taking all the pieces and putting it back together. You can't. It's impossible. It's like that bag up there. I would consider that one nearly impossible. Unless you're like Mission Impossible or something. Make it there. All right. So there's a lot of hash functions out there. MD5 is probably the most popular one. Also known as digital fingerprints, one-way hash functions. MD5 has what's called a collision. What a collision is, if you have 2 different documents, now produce the same hash, it's called a collision. Which should never happen. But they've proven if you take a specific document and change a specific bit in it, you can create a collision. It's a very small collision, but they proved you can. So a lot of people don't like it anymore. It's kind of like DES. Oh, it's been broken, we can't use it. But the time of use is only for 30 minutes, so it's fine. But another way you think, they would buy a computer back when the Pentium 66s came out. I remember buying it. It came out right before Christmas. And so everybody bought one. Then immediately after, it's, oh, there's a floating point error. It was an error like the 4 billionth decimal position. Okay, how many of us are using the 4 billion decimal positions? I'm not. At least not balancing my checkbook. But the fact that it had an issue with it, everybody wanted a new one. So Intel shipped everybody a new one. The reason they did it is AMD was coming out with a chip right about the same time. Intel just beat them to the punch. Knew there was an issue with it. And just said, hey, we're going to just replace them after the fact. Which they did. They sent us all new chips. Did it fix anything? Yeah, I guess it fixed this floating point error at the 4 billionth position. But for the majority of us, it didn't matter. Okay? Okay. SHA is used a lot. Now, like when you use forensic tools, it'll actually encrypt it with MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2. It'll actually show you all the different ones. It's another hashing algorithm. Okay? Considered superior to MD5, yet MD5 is still the most popular. All right. Passwords. This is, password protection is open to many kinds of attacks. Dictionary attacks. So does anyone in here have a password that if I did a dictionary attack, we could break it? Now, a dictionary attack is, if I went through the dictionary, could I find your password in it? No one's going to admit to it, yet a lot of people use it. Okay? A lot of people use it. But most systems nowadays won't accept it. Like OSU, their system cannot contain any dictionary word whatsoever, any combination of your name, any of the last 400 passwords you ever used. It's just really...
Last 400? Wow.
It's crazy the way... I don't know what... That's why... I mean, and the funny thing is they will automatically randomly generate one for you. But then where are you going to write it down at? You know, you're not. So it gets tough. But there's... How about guesswork? Could you guess a password? Sure. You could. You know, there's... Now, even AES, if you guessed the right key, could you break it? Yeah, you could, if you could guess the right key. So dictionary text. Guessing passwords based on common words. Lots of dictionaries out there. You can buy dictionaries. You can also buy what's called rainbow tables. I don't think it's in here, but rainbow tables is someone pre-compiled all the hashes for all these bazillion words. Then all you do is have to compare it. The problem with breaking passwords is the time it takes to create the hashes. So if you already have the hashes, you can just do a comparison. It's much quicker. Okay? It says, can be determined the key necessary to break in the document. We talked about that. Dictionary attacks usually don't work against complex passwords. Okay? Because they're not dictionary words any longer. Okay. Now there are tools like John the Ripper that can take dictionary words and mangle them, do substitution or whatever on them. There's just all kinds of different stuff. Okay. It says crackers need the file that contains the passwords of the target. Now, say you got passwords. Say this is my work PC right here on the desk. What's the odds that my password is stored in text somewhere? Could be. I mean, most people, someplace or another, write their password, type it in a document, email it, write it down somewhere. And we're going to learn in forensics in about 3 labs that you can actually take like entire PCs and export word lists from them. Where that way every single word that's on this PC could be exported to a dictionary file and then use that. So if you have a dictionary file, something base that you use, they're actually very good for breaking passwords. Okay. So they need some sort of file, which is quite easy to get usually. The defense is limit the number of guesses allowed before users locked out. Okay? Like your iPhone, was it locked out at 10 or 5 or something? Is it 10? Okay. So most phones do that now, even in Windows. I think Rose State locks it out at 3. It's only locked out for 15 minutes. So it's not that big a deal. If I was trying to break, if you're trying to break into my account, you could do 3 times, wait 15 minutes, 3 times, or really do 2 times, wait 5 minutes. Yeah, but that's a whole nother story. Okay. There's also hybrid attacks, guessing passwords by creating new words, combinations of words and stuff like that, adding letters and numbers to a dictionary words, substituting certain words, okay, duplicating words, Todd, something like that, the Syrian president's email was 12345. Isn't that nice? Okay. All right. You can also append letters. You can reverse words. You can duplicate words. You can do number spreads. You can just do all kinds of stuff to your passwords. You just got to do something. If to this day you have a dictionary word as your password, you really need to change it. Or if you have your dog's name, your mom's name, or anything like that, you really need to change it. It's not good. Okay, guidelines. It says avoid using the same password for everything. Years ago I did. I mean, most of us probably use the same password for multiple systems. What I like about LastPass, it tells you, hey, you have 2 websites with the same password, which is kind of nice that it does that. But it's at the point now where I use so many different systems and they all have different requirements, so you really can't use the same password. It's impossible because one requires 6 digits. And I've had some that are like numeric passwords only, between 6 and 8 digits. Something recently I signed up for and it was like, seriously? That's like... Yeah, numbers only 6 to 8 digits.
You can only use these 4 special characters, not a whole range of special
I know.
characters.
Some of them, it's like, why? Yeah, there's a lot of places that are doing that now. Like, you can only have this. And it's,
But then you're
Shortening the
shortening
key
the
space.
yes,
Right.
exactly,
It's like-
exactly. Well, think about our ATMs. What are our ATMs? 4-digit number. That's it. I mean, I could see years ago when we slid our cards in and it would eat the card if you did it wrong. But nowadays, you don't. You pull it back out, do it a couple times, so it's
But
tough.
systems that say like you can't use any part of a previous password of the previous 1 or 2, doesn't that have to keep your text,
Yes,
your
they have to be
password
stored
in
in
plain
somewhere.
text somewhere to know
Well,
that?
it doesn't necessarily have to be in plain text. They can have it in plain text, but that could be encrypted with AES or something.
Well, but your password is to get into the system. It won't work.
But
Past ones won't work. It's not like a key.
but they don't want you to take password 1 and change it to password 2.
Oh, right.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's why they remember
he's
your
right.
old password.
They have to have them stored.
Right, but they
But
could
your
be stored
previous-
encrypted. It's like when I ran my ISP years ago.
But they would have to have some way of getting it back because
Right.
the hash difference between password 1 and password 2
Right, but they do have it
drastically
stored.
different.
Right.
So they'd have to have
They have it stored
some
in
way
text, but it doesn't mean that their storage is not encrypted.
Well,
Some
what
they
is-
can-
Right.
Right.
What is the issue with them being in plain text if they can no longer work?
Give you clues to what your current
yeah.
password was.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, but I doubt they do.
I really doubt they would store it in plain text. Just because if the word got out that, yes, all my prior passwords are stored in plain text, I could just see the news article about that. It'd be
But
like
yeah, it would have
Target,
to be
no one
some
shops
sort
there
of
anymore.
reversible algorithm.
Right.
to
It's gotta be
get it
something.
back. It would be the only way you could compare it.
Yeah. It says avoid using one's own name in a password. Makes sense. Okay. as well as your child, your spouse, your friend, your pet, or whatever the heck, you know. Avoid using common words. Include random letters, numbers, characters. But again, you have to go by what they ask for. Some places really limit you. That's why LastPass is nice. You say, I want numbers, letters, this, that, and the next thing, and generate. And it does it for you, which is really kind of cool. Avoid writing them down, but we're at the point now where you have to store them somewhere because you cannot remember them all. It's impossible. A lot of our cell phones have password management applications with them, so which is kind of nice. Just don't lose your phone. Okay. Brute force is all possible combinations of letters and characters. It's like our ATM card. How many possible combinations could there be? There's not that many. Okay. It's very time consuming, requires patience, but when we have a computer with a lot of memory that can take 4 billion per second, I mean, whoopee, it's trivial. Okay? Okay, snooping or eavesdropping and look over someone's shoulder. I always, whenever I fly out of Will Rogers, it was for a while there they'd have the keypads on the wall. But now if you ever watch or you ever fly out of there, watch them when they're going into the gate area that's locked. Now, they go over there and they'll hunch around it, put their hand up, which is good. They should, because they don't want people to be able to see it, which is a good thing, because you never know what people are doing. Okay. It says use wisely whenever attackers are physical proximity of you or watching what you're doing and stuff like that. Okay. Now I was actually thinking about it this morning. I was driving out of my house. Neighbor across the street was leaving and I was leaving. What if I was a bad guy and watched every morning and say, wow, Ken Dewey leaves the house every morning at 6:30? I mean, that's bad already. I mean, he's not really doesn't know my past or anything, but now he knows more about me. He knows when to break into my house, and that sucks. And, you know, it's kind of like social engineering kind of stuff. Okay, Keyloggers, it records every key pressed on the computer system. Okay, most spyware has the ability to be keyloggers. When I did a little bit of research on keyloggers a few years ago, it was like 94% of spyware had the ability to become a keylogger. Didn't necessarily do it, it just had the ability to do it. So, kind of scary. It can be easily installed, it can be software-based, it can be hardware-based, they can plug right into your keyboard, they can go anywhere. They're generally invisible to the client. Social engineering says cracker can pretend to be a legitimate user. It can be anything. People behave naively when so-called computer experts question them. You know, I took care of the wireless networks at Buffalo Wild Wings for quite a long time, for years and years actually. I finally stopped taking care of it because they kept writing me a check every month but never called me. I felt bad about keep billing them when they never ever called me. So I just stopped billing them. Their systems are probably still working today. It's one of those things that they never broke. But I did get called once to Buffalo Wild Wings up in Edmond off of Kelly Road up there. One time they called me and I just walked up and said, I'm here to fix your wireless. And oh, come on back, here you go. And they let me in the office and everything. I'm like, you don't know who I am from Adam. Let me into all their stuff. And I was leaving here, you want some free wings and some cake? I'm like, okay, fine, give me free wings and cake. But again, they didn't know who I was. Okay. The students at Rose State here actually did a project in social engineering years ago. The only one who knew about it was the president. Nobody else knew about it but the president. We had Ian Byers, which is Professor Byers' son. He went over to student services. Yeah, my name's John. I'm here to fix your computer. Let him right on in student services. Like, can you log in for me? They logged in for him and everything. Another student walked over there to student services. Yeah, my name's Eileen Dewey. I lost my faculty ID card. They sat her down, took her picture. She had a new student's picture with Eileen Dewey's name. But there was a lot of issues. The student services building basement is supposed to be locked. And that's where all the shredding goes. There's big bins that are locked up where all the stuff that needs to be shredded goes. Well, students went down there, it was wide open. There was piles of papers everywhere. The shredding bin got full, so they just literally started piling it around on the floor. And no one shredded it. So just lots of issues. But when Ian went to student services, someone did finally contact IT services and ask about it. And they immediately sent an email out that there's a perpetrator on campus trying to break into the system. They're calling the police. We're like, whoa, 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 calm down. Calm down. But really, the only one that knew I was the president. And We've wanted to do one since then, but according to our IT people, we have way too much critical stuff here on campus. We're a public school. Freedom of information. You could literally get anything you wanted. I just don't think they want us to do it again and find issues. Okay. Speaking of that, kind of the same topic, but not really. But Sergeant Grit is he sells marine stuff. If you look up grunt.com or sergeantgrit.com, he sells t-shirts and bumper stickers. It's my very first client from years and years ago. Caleb Glave used to be a student here, works there. He's their networking manager. He wanted to know if we would be willing as a class to do a project to go out there and look for vulnerabilities on their network. If I was to set this up as a project, would people be interested? It would have to be like on maybe a Saturday or something, meet for a few hours. I would have to let you know a date.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I told him I'd ask. I totally forgot to ask you last week. But because he asked me if we'd come do it. So we've done it many a times. So once we cover a few of the tools to do that kind of stuff, I'll see about setting it up. And I'll let you know, I'll know some dates, we can pick a date. And it's really just to find vulnerabilities. Because I worked on his network since it was up in his one room in his house. And now he has probably 100 machines. Kept growing and growing and growing, and it's just crazy stuff. So, all right. So now that at least seems like some of you are interested. Okay. I don't know. Well, I'll come up with some way because I know not everybody can make it. I'll come up with some idea and I'll let you know. Okay. So really, social engineering is really taking advantage of people. Could be through phishing. I'm getting has anyone seen an increase in spam phishing emails lately? You know, we got the WorkCenter Pro. We get a lot of those scanned from the WorkCenter Pro copy machine. It's really a virus. Also, we're getting tons of those here at Rose. We don't have WorkCenter Pros anymore, but we had them here. Now all of a sudden we get all these emails that look like it's coming from the scanner when it's not really from the scanner. And it's something we're getting through our firewalls, which is kind of bad. But it seems like every day our IT service is sending in another, hey, this is the fake email, don't click it. No one loves you, that kind of stuff, you know. All right, sniffing. Now, what would happen, we talked about how my password is sent across the network as a hash. What would happen if someone was to capture that? Is still that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Still a bad thing. Now they have the hash on my password. Now they can take some computer systems and sit there and run it against that hash and sooner or later break the password. So yeah, that is still. And sniffing, there's lots of protocols like Telnet and FTP, POP3 that are not encrypted. I always like, pretty much any website I use nowadays, I like to have a lock on it. And I found that most websites, if it doesn't have HTTPS, you can put the S on there. And the login page will become encrypted. Not all of them do, but most of them do nowadays. So, kind of handy. Okay. Password stealing says you can copy files where passwords are stored. You can copy the SAM file. You can copy wherever they're stored at. It says once they get the file, then they can take the time to break them. Had an issue. It says some are stored in the shadow file, like the Linux-based systems. Okay. There's Cain and Abel. There's Crack. There's John the Ripper. There's Telnet Crack. Hydra and Loft Crack. There's a bunch of different tools out there. John the Ripper is probably the most popular. Cain is very scary if you do a man-in-the-middle attack. It'll capture FTP, HTTP. It'll capture all kinds of passwords instantly. All right, Cain, free. oxid.it is where you get it from. Don't install it at work. It's not a good thing. You know it's a bad tool when you minimize it, the icon's clear. I mean, there's no icon.
Wow.
I mean, on your toolbar, it's literally just like a square block. You know it's bad when there's nothing on the toolbar. But in forensics, that's the tool I use to create the MP3 needed for the telephone conversation. If you run that tool on a phone with voice over IP, automatically captures all conversations as MP3. It's like, wow, it's scary. It does wireless password breaking. It does pretty much everything. So you record the voice over IP. Could decrypt scrambled passwords. Years ago, we're talking IE 6-7 days, my son used to go in there and delete his history and stuff he wasn't supposed to be doing. I would just run this, and it can go in and recover stuff that somehow, I saw you in here with this username and password. How did you find that? The tool just does it for you. It's It's a really cool tool. You will probably use it sooner or later, but it also has reveal boxes. What that means is, you ever seen those boxes got like all the asterisks in it? You can run this tool and just click on the box and it'll tell you what the password is. So it is free. Very, very cool tool. Okay, and there's what it looks like. You can download all the hashes and has a pretty basic password breaker. We're going to be using this tool in this class for this. So it's got a pretty basic one built into it. Crack's an old one. Not many people use it. John the Ripper, very, very, very popular. We're using in forensics this week. Pretty good password there. It can use wordless mode. It can use all kinds of different modes. Telnet crack, used for breaking Telnet. Amazing, huh? All right. THC Hydra is used for online password breaking. We're going to be using that in forensics next week. So, Loftcraft and also LC5 is now currently owned by, I think, is it Symantec owns it, or it keeps switching hands. Symantec owned it at one point. I don't know who owns it at the moment. But it was a really decent password cracker. You could tell it to do dictionary or hybrid or brute force, or it's kind of, and it could actually capture hashes over a network. So, kind of a nice tool. All right, that's pretty much all of chapter 6. Again, no project for this chapter yet, but there is a project for this week. Okay.